A new documentary titled The Devil is Busy gives viewers an intimate look into a day on the front lines in the battle for reproductive rights at a women's health care clinic in Atlanta. In it, an OBGYN discusses how these policies have landed in the exam room and how they affect her day-to-day.
I still remember like my first couple of weeks here. I was just so amazed by the work that they do here. How's it going? Being able to take care of patients from all over the U.S. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go say hi to everyone and then I'll be back and we can discuss it. How's it going?
Busy today.
Today? As busy as last week?
Not as.
You know, I've worked my whole life to be an OBGYN, and as much as I want to provide care, I have to, you know, keep in mind my safety, my livelihood, all of those things. And it's, when it puts it into perspective that you could like go to jail, it's just like, what? That's just, it's hard.
Joining me now is award-winning documentarian and journalist Soledad O'Brien. She's the executive producer of the HBO documentary The Devil is Busy, and a great old friend of mine. Thank you for being here, my friend. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Let's talk about, you focus on a few characters in your documentary, and one of them is an abortion clinic security guard, someone who's deeply religious. It's a sort of a nuanced personality that's often left out of this conversation. Tell me why you chose to focus on her.
Yeah, she was just a great person, I think, to tell a very nuanced and humanity-centered story often, and I know that you've covered this as a reporter too, right? When you're covering stories about abortion, you're covering the politics of it. And I think we had an opportunity at the end of Roe v. Wade to say, okay, what is the story that we want to examine? So we started looking at clinics and seeing what the story could be, and you know, couldn't find it. And then when we hit upon Tracy, the security guard, we felt she really embodied a lot of the conflicts. You know, Tracy is a complex, nuanced person. She is deeply religious, but she would throw her body in front of anybody in order to protect the women who come into this abortion clinic. She talks a lot about her past experiences. She's very emotional about her life and very protective. And I think you don't get to see that a lot. We kind of moved the conversation out of politics and moved it into who are the actual people in these clinics and what they do day in and day out. So it's really a day in the life of Tracy's work.
Let's play a clip of Tracy, as you said, a security guard, explaining her morning routine at the clinic.
Try to put out some snacks and some water. It's not a whole lot, but because the guests come from out of state, driving all night long, 6, 8, 10 hours to come here, they're not sitting here without anything to eat all day long. I'll walk through the building just to make sure everything is clear, because it'll be easy for someone to hide and wait to ambush someone if they really, really wanted to.
And you could tell from her tone and her voice, she's not being hyperbolic. She's actually worried that someone might hide and ambush. And every abortion provider I've talked to has said the same thing. These are not abstract concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. They're based in fact and based in history, recent history. I think it gets people to see sort of the impact of this kind of over the line between the protesters who are right outside that clinic and the people who are working inside the clinic, and how they often come into conflict. So, yeah, it's very, very real for the people who are working in the clinic, not just the potential violence, but also, as the doctor said, like, so what happens if you go against the rules in the Atlanta, in the state, Georgia, you know, you're not allowed to give an abortion after 6 weeks. And so they're constantly trying to figure out exactly what stage they're on. And nobody wants to make, obviously, a wrong call. But the pressure upon them is really great. So it was interesting to follow them. And I think also to meet some of the women who'd come into the clinics. You know, I think there's a lot of stereotypes about the people who get abortions. But to see the couples that come in, people who are not 16-year-olds, they're grown people with children already who can't afford to have kids, was also a way, I think, to show, again, a more nuanced picture of what's actually happening.
And this interesting point you make about it not being about the politics, to many people who are pregnant and either have a complication or would like to have an abortion for whatever their reasons are, they don't follow the politics as closely. Everybody getting an abortion is not an abortion activist. And so this becomes complicated because you are going in there to get good guidance, to get advice. The staff is sometimes limited in what they can tell you, and you need to be up to speed on what it is, what the deadline is, what the last day you can get an abortion is, which is why these crisis pregnancy centers sometimes complicate things, because you're on a tight deadline, you go here, and you've missed your ability to get an abortion.
Right. One day makes a huge difference. In fact, in the documentary, we see a woman who calls into the call center at this abortion clinic, and the call center operator is like, you're 6 weeks in a day. Got to go somewhere else. I mean, and you see in the doc, people turned away who come in, a couple comes in, and then they have to go because they are not no longer able to get the medical procedure. So, yeah, I think it really focuses on the human beings as opposed to the screaming people fighting about the issue, politically speaking.
You and I have worked together before, and this has always been your thing, right? You've always decided you're going to focus on people and let the chattering class handle the politics of it all. Did you take something away that you didn't know in this documentary?
Yeah, I think what was interesting, there's a scene in the doc where a woman realizes that she's pregnant and she can get an abortion. And she starts to cry and laugh and cry and laugh, right? Because it really captured, how I don't think we do a good job showing what's happening to these women, right? She's both very relieved, obviously, and says she is, and very emotional. And the abortion provider saying, listen, this is very normal reaction. But I don't think we get to capture that conflict, right? She's both just emotional and she's laughing and relieved. And I think this has just it was just a way to see something. And I really, having covered a lot of stories about abortion clinics, hadn't really seen before.
Obviously, when you're talking about abortion, if you're focusing on real people, you are focusing on these guests, as they call them, the people who are seeking reproductive care. But what I found from that first visit right after Roe fell to Alabama is the pressure and the stress on these staff members is remarkable. Not just the fear of prosecution or someone coming at them, because in a lot of these states, attorneys general and governors are looking for people to prosecute, but the idea that they're dealing with guests, people seeking abortion, who are already stressed. They're in one of the most stressful environments they'll ever face in life, and they've got to internalize that. And they feel, as Tracy said, they feel threat themselves.
Yeah, and also trying to figure out, do I want to stay here? Is there a future for my career here in this state? And so you're seeing, in fact, even in medical schools, right, this idea of maybe you don't need to educate people in abortion services if, in fact, it's not going to be possible. So, so I think it's a lot of pressure. Not only on the clients or the guests, sometimes they, different sort of called different things, but on the providers who at every level are just baffled. One of the sonic woman who provides a sonogram said, I just can't believe that I have more rights than my daughter. It's kind of baffling to her. And the other thing she said that I thought was really accurate is, when you're talking about women's health care, you start with the letter A, abortion, and it never goes further. When we're talking, for example, about Planned Parenthood, often the conversation is about abortion, but it's not necessarily about women's health care. It's not about mammograms. It's not about cancer screenings. It's not about any other thing. You sort of stop at abortion, and the conversation about women's health care should be obviously much greater than that. It's much more important than that.
Well, you bring up Planned Parenthood. There are a very high percentage of women who get 100% of their health care, particularly if you're not covered by insurance or something else. There's a doctor there or there's a clinician who's going to be able to tell you things you didn't even know about yourself. Abortion is one part of it, but in many cases, it's not abortion.
Right. So what happens to those women? What happens to the women who go to Planned Parenthood and cannot afford to go somewhere else? I don't know that we've had enough conversations about those women because the conversation stays centered in abortion and not women's health care generally.